Okay, we're live on air. This bit always confuses me because I'm not always sure when we start. But I'm here with, well, I was going to call him the boy from Free Cloud, but he has a name. And Martin, do you want to introduce yourself and
Yeah.
what you do, please?
Yeah, I'm Martin Compton, work in the Professional Development Department at Ealing, Hammersmith and West London College. I'm a teacher trainer. My background's history and English, but my specialism, I suppose, is in e-learning and particularly what is free, what is easy. Learning in the cloud, blending, flipping, cloud tools, anything that you can access that's available out there to make the most of teaching and learning and motivate those students and get them excited about stuff that perhaps they've got in their pockets and they're not using appropriately.
Getting students excited about things, yeah, that's a good thing for education. So where we ought to start almost, isn't it? Inspire, excite. Yeah, that's a cool. And you're a guy after my own heart. That's why I'm having this chat actually, because yeah, we're very compatible. You were talking to me earlier, so I decided to just record this, just grab this, not let this sort of go to waste. So let's record it. You were talking earlier about what you were doing. There's a course, isn't there? A blended learning course. You were talking about, flipping stuff. You want to say a bit more about that, Mum?
Well, we've got a number of courses that we run in the Professional Development Department beyond the sort of bespoke departmental CPD, one-to-one, all of that. One of them is the 2-year part-time PGCE. There's a Teaching with Technology module on that does what it preaches, if you like. So there are blended elements, there are distant elements, there are peer-to-peer collaborative opportunities. You know, the first part of the module is all done before we meet in the class. Everybody contributes a slide to a Google slide, some information about the group, and that's all done before we actually meet face to face. And so we're already trialing those sorts of things on a module that's about teaching with technology. But what we're moving to now is applying that to other modules as well. So, for example, 4 of us here are working on a flipped, blended, distance module called curriculum design. So we're using things like Adobe Voice, Screencastify, Screencast-O-Matic, Podomatic, Audio Boo, so to get some video content, some animation content, Powtoon, that kind of thing, vodcasts, as a way of leading into the theoretical elements of the session and then using face-to-face opportunities for the applied stuff, which is the flip model basically. But I think it's imperative that teacher trainers take this on board and start these new ways of teaching and learning, because it's gaining momentum. It's got the research basis behind it. It's not a novelty anymore. It's not a flash in the pan. It's becoming established, and HEIs are using it. Schools are using it. We've got to keep up with the game in FE as well.
Yeah, it's because a lot of education is, of course, big business. I mean, it's got a big audience. It's there's a lot of platform providers. It never used to be that way. So I'm really interested in what you're doing. With free tools that you can sort of pick and mix, and you can move about pretty quickly. It's almost a return full circle where the teacher has more freedom to use the things that he's comfortable with or she's comfortable with, rather than I don't want to get too political, but the institutional approach of here's the platform and the constraints there. So it's well, free is not only in terms of economic finance, it has other meanings as well.
Yeah.
Free cloud, it just occurred to me, yes, free cloud, free learning, free education, that's not just, it doesn't cost you anything, but it gives you some freedom as well. Freedom.
Yeah, it's liberating. One of the things I say to people, look, first of all, I'm interested if it's free, and also I'm interested if it's easy. Because one of the problems you have with those off-the-peg purchase software systems is that you often have to go and sign something out. Do you remember the voting devices that used to come in really lovely stainless steel boxes and everything, and never got used? 1,500 quid's worth of kit sat locked in a cupboard, because that's not easy. That requires signing it out, fetching it, taking it, logging each one in, never get used. And so many institutions had the same issues with those sorts of things. You know, and I'm not just talking about one particular smart board system. I'm talking about all of them. They all went through this phase. And so what I try and encourage people to do is to think about how you can use stuff that you can find online. Some of it is specifically designed for education, like BlendSpace, for example, which is a brilliant tool. You know, it's that easy to curate information from the web and put it together for a lesson purpose. And other things that aren't designed for educational purposes at all. You know, they're productivity tools that don't have an education label, but you can subvert them for your own purposes as a teacher, depending on what you want to achieve. And what always startles me is that when you show people one or more of these tools, is they go, "You made that look really easy." It is easy, and easy, I know, is a movable feast and is relative to each individual. But the thing that I say to people is, have you ever used PowerPoint? And most people have used PowerPoint. And I say, imagine yourself in front of a computer, never having touched PowerPoint before. How long would it take you to produce a presentation in that? Well, any of these tools that I show you are that intuitive. These free cloud tools are that intuitive that the learning curve is much shallower than the PowerPoint one ever was for you. So anything I show you as a baseline to give you a rough idea is going to be easier to learn how to use than PowerPoint. Very often, much, much, much easier. It's as much about demystification as it is about stimulating and exciting people and getting them to see the potential of all the stuff around them. You know?
It's very symbolic of our age, I think, yeah, because the traditional model has a lot of on-costs built in. I wouldn't say well, in the past it was more difficult. That IT was never quite as easy as it is now. But I think I wouldn't say it's deliberately built in to be more complex. But you know, I remember certain providers, I won't name them here, with saying that yes, support services are available. We have consultancy. There's a whole gravy train, a whole ecosystem that exists around the product. So maybe they might even reduce the cost of the product, but you can't. I mean, someone described Moodle as a bucket of bricks that you can put together, but consultancy services are available. You know, this kind of thing. And somebody described, for example, Google as being like an empty hotel room. You know, you can just move into it, and well, it's a free hotel room for education as well. You know, the difference there. But I was thinking about other older providers that have products that you need training. It works wonderful in education, doesn't it, Martin? That yes, you need to have training and education to use these products. So yeah, that was just one. I always say that nobody taught almost 1 billion people to use Facebook. They seem to somehow work it out for themselves without a training department generally.
That's right. Yeah, my mum worked it out for herself, and she's 70, so you know, that's a good benchmark for me. And you know, these tools have got to be easier to use than Facebook. Yeah. You know, that's another benchmark. They've got to be easier to use than some of the more complicated social media platforms. So in class, you know, easier than Facebook, easier than PowerPoint. You know, no need for step-by-step guides or whatever. And if you're struggling with that piece of software, then do something else. Find some things that you like. And what I do is I package things up thematically: collaborative tools, quizzing tools, presentation tools, multimedia, audio, video tools, that kind of thing. And I say to people, look, here's a whole bunch of things. Have a play around. Look at some examples. Apply it, and then come to me when you hit a snag, and that in itself is turning the typical IT training model on its head. Because traditionally it would be, here is a thing, PowerPoint, or more lately Prezi, which I think is overly complicated and doesn't do enough different to PowerPoint. That's a personal view. But here is a thing. Open it up. Everybody open it up. Do this, step by step by step. And we've got to get away from that as well, that traditional training model. People need to be able to find their feet, and then if they hit a snag, peer-to-peer first, see if there's a video guide on it, and then expertise if it's absolutely necessary. But excuse me, you can police from a distance, monitor from a distance, guide from a distance, and most of the time you're not needed. It's having the knowledge that somebody is there, if need be, is enough to enable people to go through these things.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You've inspired me. That is a good point about how technology, in this way, once it's invisible, you know, it's not intrusive, isn't it? This is the problem with desktops and IT suites. You know, it really does. It's really intrusive to teaching and learning, where often because of network services, power, and so on, you've got all the students with their back to the teacher, sitting at a desk. It's not the normal model for learning, really. It really has been terrible. And what you're saying there, that's fascinating about the we might call flipping it. Yeah, it's easy. You come to me just in time, on demand, if you've got a problem. That's really fascinating. Martin, you were talking also about your work with, is it OCN, Open Free Resources? Do you want to talk about that for a bit?
Well, Open College Network are one of many validating bodies, and they just so happen to validate the e-learning course that I run for teachers here. We call it e-teaching, but it's actually called Teaching and Learning with Technology. That's what the course title is, but everyone calls it e-teaching in the vernacular, if you like. And again, to practice what we preach about it, what we've done is developed a Google Drive-based e-portfolio system. So this isn't something that's been paid for, it's just something that I put together. And all I've done, I mean, it's as simple as this. Each student, who's a colleague as well, is sent an identical tabulated document where they put links to their own online resources of things that they create to meet each of the criteria. There's a column for my ongoing formative feedback, so it's a shared document between the two of us. At the end of the course, I then open that up so that the EV can see all of the content, put the links to that on a single document, which is then shared remotely with the EV. No need for a visit. Everything's done on a single document. The organisation are changing some of their policies and practices because they've been so impressed with how this has worked. Already trialled it at 2 other institutions in London. They're loving it so much they